Good evening, welcome to Primetime News on MTV Sports. My name is Ravi Gaman.
I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Before we go into our stories in detail, let's take a look at the headlines.
Starting off your headlines this evening. Ending weeks of speculation, Australia confirms existence of 153 Sri Lankan asylum seekers. 5 of the 41 asylum seekers handed over to Sri Lanka remanded. UNP MP Harsha De Silva says that the subject minister had informed the proposed security stamp, which was to be introduced for selected goods on the 1st of August, will not be looked at for another 5 years. The Ministry of Defence is acting beyond its mandate by trying to control the legitimate activities of NGOs, a statement by the Lawyers Collective. Deputy President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, calls on President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Brazil and Germany face off in the first semi-final of the FIFA World Cup.
After more than a week of speculation centered on media reports, government lawyers of Australia have confirmed that 153 asylum seekers, including children as young as 2, have been intercepted and are being held on a customs vessel. And the confirmation comes as the Australian High Court considered an application today to prevent Australia from handing back the asylum seekers to Sri Lanka, as criticism over the government's handling policy mounted. An interim injunction yesterday temporarily halted the transfer of would-be refugees to Colombo from the boat carrying mostly minority ethnic Tamils reportedly intercepted at sea late last month.
For the past 1.5 weeks, Newsfirst has been covering the reports of these purported asylum seekers extensively, with daily updates through our segment 153 Missing at Sea. Speaking exclusively to Newsfirst on several occasions, Sarah White, immigration correspondent with the Sydney Morning Herald, reported on the possible existence of 2 boats. Sarah White joined us today as well.
The latest update today is that the Australian government has acknowledged that the boat carrying 150 asylum seekers does now exist. Today, also, the Australian government had to go to the High Court because judges brought forward the High Court motion saying that the boat could not be returned to Sri Lanka because that would go against international obligations. So we've got another 4 days where they'll be on the boat, but then the High Court may have to take its hearing for another 2 weeks. So potentially these people will be on board the Australian Customs boat for up to a month. On this particular boat, not on the boat that they travelled on a different customs boat that holds quite a few hundred people.
According to Australia-based ABC News, government lawyers of Australia told a High Court hearing that 72 hours notice would be given before the 153 asylum seekers currently being held on an Australian customs ship, purportedly the Ocean Protector, are handed back to Sri Lankan authorities. It was on Sunday last week that Newsfirst reported on sightings of the vessel Ocean Protector in close proximity to where the asylum seeker boat was last reported to be. However, when inquiries were made, both Australian and Sri Lankan authorities remained tight-lipped on the existence of such a boat. Lawyers acting for about 1/3 of the asylum seekers, whose whereabouts the Australian government is yet to disclose, are seeking to challenge the legality of the Australian Commonwealth's actions. Counsel for the government, Justin Gleeson SC, revealed during the hearing that the boat carrying the asylum seekers had been intercepted outside Australia's migration zone. In the hearing, Gleeson, appearing via video link from Sydney, said the government had the executive discretion to determine where those detained ended up under the Maritime Powers Act. But Ron Merkel, Queen's Counsel, acting for the asylum seekers, claimed the government did not have the power to lawfully return the asylum seekers to Sri Lanka against their will before their claims were determined. It was on Saturday last week that Newsfirst first reported on the existence of this boat. Citing reports in the Australian media, we also broadcast part of a telephone conversation that was reportedly held with one of the passengers on board the vessel, the last known direct civilian contact with the boat. 24 hours later, on the 29th of June, Newsfirst, quoting international media reports and Australian Labor Party MP Alana McTiernan, reported that staff on Christmas Island had been told to prepare for the possible arrival of the asylum seekers. Come the 30th of June, several days since the reports of the boats emerged and civilian contact was lost, the Australian government refused to comment on whether these boats existed, the standard response being that Australia did not comment on ongoing on-water operations. On the 1st of July, Newsfirst reported on the possibility of an impending transfer of asylum seekers to Sri Lanka. The Australian government maintained its silence, while Sri Lankan authorities said there had been no such handover. On the 2nd of July, the Sri Lanka's High Commissioner in Australia, Admiral Thisara Samarasinha, speaking to Newsfirst, said he had not been appraised on the situation and refused to comment further on the matter. On the 3rd of July, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott, while not commenting on the existence of such a boat or boats, noted that Australia was living up to its international obligations. Sarah White of the Sydney Morning Herald informed Newsfirst that while the boat carrying 153 asylum seekers was believed to have left India, a second boat had originated from Sri Lanka. On the 4th of July, when Newsfirst contacted Navy media spokesperson Commander Kosala Warnakula Surya, he informed us that the Navy had not been issued any directive with regard to a transfer of asylum seekers. Yesterday, as developments unfolded rapidly with the Sri Lanka Navy confirming the transfer of 41 illegal migrants by the Australian authorities, the Australian High Court issued an interim injunction preventing the transfer of the 153 asylum seekers. It is against this backdrop that Australia's Immigration and Border Protection Minister Scott Morrison is due to arrive in the country tomorrow.
5 persons of the 41 illegal migrants who were turned over to Sri Lankan authorities and produced before the Galle Chief Magistrate have been remanded. The 5 were accused of facilitating the illegal people smuggling venture.
Of the 41 produced in court today, 27 were released on bail of 5,000 rupees each and sureties of 100,000 rupees each. 9 children under the age of 16 who were among the group were acquitted. 5 persons were remanded until the 14th of this month.
After being brought to the Galle harbour on a Navy vessel last morning, the group were brought before the Galle Chief Magistrate today.
Meanwhile, human rights lawyers in Australia have questioned the legitimacy of the Australian government's decision to turn over the migrants and have questioned the screening process employed by immigration authorities.
We hold very serious concerns about the safety and well-being of these 41 asylum seekers, and it's clear that an entirely flawed process has resulted in the transfer of these people.
However, in a radio interview with Australia's 2GB radio, Foreign Minister Julie Bishop said the vast majority of seeking to arrive in Australia by boat were not asylum seekers, but rather economic migrants.
If you were feeling persecuted or you had been persecuted in Sri Lanka, you wouldn't get on a boat that's probably unseaworthy and pay criminal syndicates to travel thousands and thousands of kilometres at sea when you could get shelter in Tamil Nadu, which is a few kilometres away.
Meanwhile, the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, says it is deeply concerned by Australia's return of the 41 asylum seekers, as well as the fate of the further 153 asylum seekers who are now subject to an Australian High Court injunction on their return. With regard to the enhanced screening procedures used by Australian authorities, UNHCR notes that its experience with shipboard processing has generally not been positive. The statement issued by the UN Refugee Agency notes that the UNHCR does not object to the return of persons properly found not to be in need of international protection.
Australia bala gya yai විශ්වාස කරන
41 economic migrants, including I believe 4 or 5 children who had set off to Australia, had been rescued by an Australian ship while stranded at sea and returned to the Navy vessel Samudra. The vessel Samudra was on a 2-week patrol.
The transfer had taken place aboard the petrol vessel. This is not the first instance in which foreign ships have handed over migrants in this way. All of them were brought ashore at the Galle harbour safely and were entrusted to the authorities, the police. These people were from Moratuwa and Panadura, so I believe you can determine from that whether they were economic migrants or people who left for political reasons.
ඉතින් එතකොට ආර්ථික සංක්‍රමණිකයින්ද නැත්නම් වෙනත් දේශපාලන හේතුවක් නිසා යනවාද කියන එක ඔබට එතනින් පැහැදිලි කරගැනීමක් කරගන්න පුළුවන්.
Speaking at an event held in Ratmalana, JVP leader Andrew Kumar Dissanayake made these comments regarding Sri Lankan economic migrants.
Remember that these are our own countrymen. Why have they been made to cross the mighty seas with no regard for their own lives? According to international refugee law, once they cross the borders, the Australian government must accept them in keeping with the UN Refugee Convention. But now, the Australian government is not even saying what happened. Shouldn't our leaders be ashamed of the position they have brought our country to? Our own citizens have been made to cross the seas with no regard for their own lives in search of jobs.
The joint chambers comprising of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, the National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka, the Ceylon National Chamber of Industries, the Chamber of Young Lankan Entrepreneurs, the National Chamber of Exporters of Sri Lanka and the International Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka have written to the Minister of Cooperatives and Internal Trade, Johnston Fernando, requesting an urgent meeting with the Minister.
The heads of the joint chambers note that several of the chambers had made representations to the minister requesting that the gazette pertaining to the compulsory security stamps for selected goods and services be rescinded. The letter reads further that at a meeting held on the 13th of May at the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, the minister had assured that compliance with the scheme would be voluntary, but the gazette stands to date. The joint chambers note that the security stamp scheme will not be in the interest of consumers, industrialists and other stakeholders owing to the increased cost of essential items, the total outlay of billions of rupees to be paid to a foreign agent resulting in loss of foreign exchange, the disadvantage to the small and medium enterprise industry and the huge logistical problems presented by the scheme. Thereby, the heads of the joint chambers have requested an urgent meeting with the minister to make clarifications. Letters were also addressed to Dr. P.B. Jayasundara, Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and Planning, Rishad Batiuddin, Minister of Industry and Commerce, and the Ministry of Traditional Industries and Small Enterprise Development, briefing them on the implications of the proposed scheme.
According to UNPMT Dr. Harsha De Silva, Minister of Cooperatives and Internal Trade, Johnston Fernando had said in Parliament that the proposed security stamp, which was to be introduced for selected goods on the 1st of August, will not be looked at for another 5 years. We are now in receipt of the debate that took place between MP Dr. Harsha De Silva and Minister Johnston Fernando over the security stamp gazette notice.
Cool drinks, water, toothpaste, soap, shampoo, electric switches. Honourable Minister, it has been asked that a sticker be placed on these when selling them. I am bringing this up for a reason.
The government will not put stickers on small items like shampoo sachets and increase prices. There is a gazette. This is a long-term program. We are starting this with bottled water. Numerous complaints have been lodged with regard to bottled water, and we took this decision after surveying this. This is a decision taken for the people. We will not allow the prices of any goods to be increased.
He says this will not happen, but I will read out the gazette notice. It says, all importers or foreign suppliers must guarantee at customs storage that the packaging of all units carries this security stamp. It does not say that it is not needed for shampoo sachets. If that is the case, rescind this gazette.
As the Minister, I wish to clearly note that we can publish gazette notices. We can decide whether it will be extended for 5 years or 10 years.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. If you are saying that you will not allow a price increase, then it is good. This is the task of the opposition. If you are able to talk about this and obtain some relief for the people, then that is carrying out the democratic task of the opposition. We are very happy if we have been able to do this. But Minister, I would like to finally note that this says that the order will be effective from the 1st of August 2014. If he is saying it will happen in 5 years while the document says next month, then there is a disparity. Thereby, Minister, if you can act upon what you are saying legitimately, then we will be happy.
I was able to get the Minister of Consumer Affairs, Honorable Johnston Fernando, to say that the proposed implementation of the security stamp from 1st of August on all stock sizes of water, soft drinks, shampoos, soaps, etc. Would not be looked at for another 5 years. He said that they were only considering bottled water for the moment, but that again, he didn't give a commitment that it would be effective from 1st of August this year. It was a victory for the people. I'm very proud and very happy that as a member of the opposition, I was able to take this issue up in a matter of 1 week to bring relief to the people from what would have been an unfair tax on them.
Taking a look at one of our headline stories tonight, Deputy President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, who was on an official visit to Sri Lanka, left the island today. Prior to his departure, the visiting Deputy President held discussions with several factions.
Cyril Ramaphosa, the Deputy President of South Africa, engaged in a tour of Jaffna this morning. Cyril Ramaphosa first called on the Chief Minister of the Northern Province and held a discussion. Subsequent to the meeting, the Chief Minister expressed the following views.
What has happened after the people elected us to this position? We briefed the Deputy President that they are operating in a manner where certain powers need not be given to the northern and eastern provinces. The government is doing that. We explained that the government has said that police and land powers should not be given to us. They cannot say no to powers that have been given by the law. They cannot decide what powers in the constitution to vest us with and what not to. The constitution is equal to all. This belongs to the entire country. They have to act according to the constitution. It is against the law to decide on what powers that need to be given. We briefed the Deputy President of South Africa on all these matters.
Chief Minister Vigneswaran also said that the South African Deputy President had assured he would act in keeping with international agreements on the issues that were highlighted.
India is working on our issues. There are matters taking place in Geneva over war crimes. Many Western nations are supporting us. I informed the South African Deputy President that we would appreciate if South Africa would also engage in these activities. He guaranteed that he will not do anything that would violate it.
Subsequently, the Deputy President of South Africa called on the Governor of the Northern Province, G.A. Chandrasiri, and discussed the current status of the province. Prior to his departure to Jaffna, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa met with representatives of the Tamil National Alliance in Colombo. The TNA delegation was led by TNA Parliamentary Group Leader R. Sambandhan and was attended by MPs M.A. Sumandiran, Suresh Premachandran and Mave Sinadiraja.
South Africa's involvement in sharing their own experiences and assisting the TNA and the government to take the process of political reconciliation forward is a constructive one, and we believe that this process will continue. We have extended our support, our appreciation for their efforts, and in the future, when there is an effort to settle the political issue as well as the ongoing violations, he will be fully apprised of the ground situation. So we look forward to South Africa's continuing constructive engagement.
Meanwhile, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa also called on President Mahinda Rajapaksa last evening at Temple Trees and held a cordial discussion. Cyril Ramaphosa was appointed by South African President Jacob Zuma as the head of the delegation that was appointed to strengthen peace in Sri Lanka. South African media reports that the objective of the visit undertaken by the Deputy President of South Africa was to support the truth and reconciliation process of Sri Lanka and to create a stable Sri Lanka where human rights can be enjoyed by reconstructing the constitution. Cyril Ramaphosa is a South African politician, businessman, activist and trade union leader who played a crucial role during the negotiations to bring about a peaceful end to apartheid.
DMS Dissanayake, the Director Registrar of the National Secretariat for Non-Governmental Organizations attached to the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, issued a statement to all NGOs in the island.
The statement, bearing the signature of DMS Dissanayake, dated 7th July 2014, issued to all NGOs, reads as follows. It has been revealed that certain non-governmental organizations conduct press conferences, workshops, training for journalists and dissemination of press releases, which is beyond their mandate. We reiterate that all non-governmental organizations should prevent from such unauthorized activities with immediate effect. During a media briefing held today, a journalist questioned Brigadier Ruwanwanika Surya, the director of the media center of the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, on the matter.
This decision was taken in keeping with laws that were enacted to govern non-governmental organizations in 1980, 1998 and 1999. There are 1,416 non-governmental organizations operating in Sri Lanka. The director of the National Secretariat for Non-Governmental Organizations issued a statement yesterday urging NGOs to work under this framework. It is not an act to restrict freedom of speech or restrict the activities. This should be clearly understood.
Meanwhile, the Lawyers Collective issuing a media release says that the Ministry of Defence is acting beyond its mandate by trying to control the legitimate activities of non-governmental organizations. The media release by the convener of the Lawyers Collective, Attorney at Law J.C. Amuna, reads that the Ministry of Defence does not enjoy any specific legal authority under any statute whatsoever to control freedom of speech and association of citizens who act collectively through civil society organizations. It adds that it is clear from the press release issued by the ministry that the MOD has acted beyond its mandate. The media release goes on to say that all governments that respect democratic values respect the rights of citizens to engage in such lawful activities, and only authoritarian regimes prevent such democratic engagements. The Lawyers Collective adds that if the government of Sri Lanka is serious in preserving the democratic character of the country, it must respect its own constitutional freedoms such as freedom of expressions and association.
Venerable Maduluave Sobithathero called on the leader of the National Freedom Front, Minister Vimal Weerawansa, today.
The meeting took place at the office of the National Freedom Front in Battaramulla, and topics such as abolishing the executive presidency, re-implementation of the 17th Amendment to the Constitution and amending the electoral system were discussed. The country believes that it will be good for the country if the law of the country and the rule of law are protected. We have an executive president who cannot be brought before any court, even if they have committed many wrongs, and not held accountable to the parliament, the law and the constitution. We witnessed this in the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. President Mahinda Rajapaksa witnessed this. Now you are in power and you have a two-thirds majority. The leftist leaders who want this abolished are also with you. Please do this.
29th death anniversary of the late Edward Henry Pedris was held in Colombo yesterday. It was held in the vicinity of the statue of the late Henry Pedris in Havelock Town. A group including relatives of the late Henry Pedris graced the occasion.
99 years ago, Edward Henry Pedris gifted his life as a Sinhalese hero. There was no place for the Sinhala Buddhist in the time of the imperialist. He lived in a neighborhood of Colombo among the foreigners. The Pedris family has rendered an immense service to the community, the religion and the country.
Henry Pedris.
In 1915, our hero Henry Pedris died from an English bullet. We can understand the hero Henry Pedris of 1915 only if we understand the oppression of the English government towards the Sinhalese then. Henry Pedris is one of the heroes who responded for the Sinhalese society against the unjust and unfair English rule.
Don Henry Pedris, born in Gaul on the 16th of August 1888, was a social activist and military officer in Ceylon under the British rule. Edward Henry Pedris was killed in 1915 after being falsely accused of charges including inciting communal unrest.
Have candidates who have made various promises to the people prior to elections fulfilled their promises post-elections? Newsfirst visited Bandarawela in the Uva province, which could see an election in the near future, to inquire into whether those elected 5 years ago have fulfilled any of the promises they made.
The town of Bandarawela, where vegetable farming is the primary livelihood, is a unique town in the Uva province. The public believe that Bandarawela, whose scenic beauty has drawn the gaze of countless local and foreign tourists, has failed to capture the attention of ruling politicians.
This has become distasteful for the people. Trade that was done in a single day cannot be even met in 10 days now. It is very difficult to live. The provincial council is yet to do something that we have well. We are yet to see the development of roads and infrastructure.
The farmers of Bandarawela too opine that the services rendered by the provincial council is insufficient.
The agrarian community is despairing. I say that there is no consideration at all for upcountry people. It has come to a level where vegetable farmers and traders cannot sell their produce. Let alone the provincial council, nothing has been done so far.
Leader of the opposition Ranil Wickremesinghe made a statement in Parliament today on the recent incident in Alutgama.
There seems to have been a cover-up, and how did that cover-up take place? I am not casting any aspersions on the magistrate. I think he did the correct thing. The main issue, Honourable Minister, is there seems to have been a cover-up, because you cannot say that the person who was shot was also killed by some other blunt weapon. So will this House be informed of all the facts?
And it is now confirmed that one of the post-mortem reports confirm that in fact one death occurred due to shooting, and the other is somewhat unclear, and therefore the magistrate has ordered that the judicial medical officer concerned be summoned to court and for his evidence to be led in order to ascertain the cause of death.
You're still watching News First. The Western Provincial Council convened this morning.
The Provincial Council convened under the aegis of Chairman Sunil Vijayratna. UMP Western Provincial Councillor S.M. Marika made his maiden address to the Council today. We should not allow any extremist organization or even a place of worship to be above all for any reason. We must not allow anyone to deprive people to the freedom to live in Sri Lanka while upholding their communal and religious identity. In 1948, we gained independence banded together as one and not divided as individuals. It is my belief that no country can move forward when it is divided. Government councillors expressed their opposition today when UMP councillor Mujibur Rahman presented a proposal on the recent incident in Berula and Alutgama. Chairman Sutil Vijayratna adjourned the council for 10 minutes owing to the tensions. However, when the council reconvened, tensions flared again. The The council was later adjourned until the 22nd of this month.
The magisterial hearing into the death of a youth who was killed in police fire in Barawawila Diulapitiya recommenced today.
The hearing was taken up before Minuwangoda Magistrate D.A. Ruwan Pathirana. Attorney at Law Ajit Pathirana, representing the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, objected once again today to Attorney at Law Thusita Ruwan Gunasekara appearing for the police while serving as an Assistant Superintendent of Police. However, counsel representing the police raised a counter-objection. About 5 evidence items were taken up today, following which further inquiries were postponed to the 10th of this month.
For a lawyer attached to the police to intervene in such an instance is very inappropriate. I made submissions regarding this. I clarified to the respected court that following any killing or murder, it is a duty of the police to immediately investigate the scene of crime and then produce evidence and suspects in court. There cannot be a change in the way in which the law is enforced, be he a police officer, lawyer, politician or other professional. If such a change does take place, it violates the constitutional right that all are equal before the law.
UNP leader Ranil Wickremesinghe refused to accept the letter of resignation today of Kaluthura district parliamentarian Palitha Thevara Peruma. Thevara Peruma says that although he intended to submit his letter of resignation to the Secretary General of the Parliament via the party leader, Wickremesinghe had not accepted his resignation.
I had not informed the leader. I did not ask anyone for permission either. But I brought the letter of resignation to be given to the Secretary General of Parliament via the party leader. I went for the parliamentary group meeting and submitted the letter to the leader, but he did not accept it. He asked me to sit down and told me to get the approval of the people of Kaluthura district and then submit my resignation. He told me that he has no right to accept my resignation without the approval of the people of the district. I thought about his decision respectfully and then I left.
A workshop on kite making organised in lieu of the National Social Integration Week took place today at the Lankarama Road Vihara in Anuradhapura. Youth from various communities took part in this program, which is sponsored by Newsfirst, hailing from different parts of Anuradhapura. The program is organised by the Ministry of National Languages and Social Integration, United Nations Volunteers and Kites Sri Lanka. The Kite Festival will take place on the 19th of this month on 7 beaches in Sri Lanka.
In business news, the all-share price index of the Colombo Stock Exchange climbed above 6,500 points for the first time since October 2011 today. At close of trading today, the benchmark index was up by 66.81 points, closing at 6,565.81 points. We encountered a technical difficulty while airing the views of leader of the opposition Ranil Wickremesinghe on the recent incident in Aludgama in Parliament today. Let's take a look at those views once again.
So there seems to have been a cover-up, and how did that cover-up take place? I am not casting any aspersions on the magistrate. I think he did the correct thing. The main issue, Honourable Minister, is there seems to have been a cover-up, because you cannot say that the person who was shot was also killed by some other blunt weapon. So will this House be informed of all the facts?
And it is now confirmed that one of the post-mortem reports confirm that in fact one death occurred due to shooting. And the other is somewhat unclear, and therefore the magistrate has ordered that the judicial medical officer concerned be summoned to court and for his evidence to be led in order to ascertain the cause of death.
Well, with that, we wrap up Primetime News at 9. Thanks a lot for joining us. I'm Stephanie Lazarus.
And I'm Ravi Gamage. Good night.